part 10 of the Sonic.EXE tutorial series. We are officially in the double digits, people. This tutorial is something that has been asked for quite a long time, ever since part 2 I think, and it is cutscenes and dialogue in your EXE games. This is a very common thing that people use nowadays, and it definitely needs a new tutorial because if you don't know, there is an old tutorial for only cutscenes, not really dialogue, but an old tutorial by Did Not So Devy, and it is a little dated at this point. I think it's 5 years old now, so here's a brand new tutorial on how to make cutscenes and dialogue in your EXE game. That's really all I have to say, so let's get started. Okay, so as always, I'm just going to start off by showing what we're going to make, and this example I have here is actually a remake of what Devy did for an example in his old tutorial. So if you've seen that old tutorial, you might recognize this with a bit more stuff added. If you can't see new stuff, okay, I'll show it. So if you couldn't see, Sonic has smooth movement coming in and going out. That is created using the easing object right here, which despite the fact that it has been part of the Simple Sonic Worlds engine ever since its existence, not much people really use it, and not much people actually know how powerful it is for cutscenes. For in-game stuff, it can be pretty useful too, but for cutscenes, it's really cool because you can have this nice, like, smooth walk-in movement, and then that's also how I did the elastic movement right here, how he goes out and then Sonic goes out like that. It's better than just the linear type movement, which is just going straight forward and stopping, because it has gotten a little old at this point, so it would be nice to see some smooth movement. And the reason I use Sonic Mania sprites is because I feel like it just fits it better. But okay, let's get started. So for this, I say just create a brand new frame. As always, I'll just name it cut. If I can type cutscene example, I guess. So obviously, you always want to take these right here. You even say extensions should be in every frame. Take them, bring them into this frame here, and just have them up there, especially the easing object, as we're going to use that later. And now here, this all, see, just like the past few tutorials, this really depends on your EXE game. So say for example with this, it just uses the basic Not So Simple Sonic World sprites, which you can just get from just here. They have them all down here, so you're easily able to access them. And accessing the back ones here, you might notice you aren't able to click them or the background either. With the background I can click. That's because their layers are locked by default. This one I did already unlock, but usually it's locked like that by default, so you just gotta unlock them and you can select them and use them. But I'm gonna get the background here and bring it into here. So obviously all this right here just depends on your EXE game, your stage, your level, your section of the game. So really you just set that up however it is. I'll probably just copy all of these so that way I have them here. Okay, so this is what I have here. You may notice I did set it up a little bit differently than this right here, which is completely fine. This is actually more accurate to what it looks like in Devy's old tutorial. And now that you have assuming that you have the whole stage set up here, go on here and make sure that it's all good. Everything looks fine here to me. So if there's any animated background sprites, obviously have those animated. There's none for the default Simple Sonic Worlds engine. So now we want to get all the characters we want to use. So for this, I'm gonna do the same thing I did here, have Mania Sonic walk in and have I forgot, I think it's one of the Eggbots, I forgot their names, but have him come down here and go out in the back, because in this version of Simple Sonic Worlds, that Eggbot is the final boss here, so it kind of makes sense to have something like that. For any of the characters up here, like obviously Robotnik, we added that in another tutorial, but any characters up here like Sonic and Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Shadow, all of them, for adding them into cutscenes, instead of just taking the animations from inside here and manually copying and pasting them, it's easier to just copy the entire player character and just put them in here to use. Now for this example, I have a special version I made, which is a Mania version of it, which not every single sprite is replaced, but it basically has most of Sonic Mania's Sonic sprites in it. So it's built the same way overall, so hopefully it's still easy to follow along with. I would put the characters in another layer here, or depending if some are behind some other objects, like if a character goes behind this right here, then obviously have them in a lower and separate layer. But make sure they're on the ground perfectly. I think that's right there. I'm gonna get the boss up here and bring him, I'll just put him up here for now. It doesn't matter too much where you put them here, because you can always set their position in the code, but you should also, since you're copying this from the playable version, you do want to kind of make sure the settings are good for a cutscene, which I believe everything in here is good by default. There is pinball movement on here for some reason. I think that was me just messing around with it, so that might not be there, but if it is, just set it to static. This here, I think this has a little setting. Yeah, this here, create a start, and then uncheck destroy object too far. Okay, now let's work on actually getting them to move. So, like I said, we're going to be using the easing object here, which can have some nice easing movement, but first we're going to need some other objects to indicate like where they'll stop and where they'll go. So let's work on Sonic first. So let's get this active here. Let's call it Sonic Stopper. We'll put it like around the edge here where these two sprites meet, and I'll just put it, you can put these on a different layer or the character layer, it doesn't really matter. And I'll leave it visible for now, but basically what we're going to do is in the code here, let's wait a little bit before we actually get them to start running. So actually, if you're going to do that, what you could just do is drag him out a bit more, so that way he'll be running and it'll take a few seconds and the whole cutscene can load in. Let's say, I guess just start of the frame. Under the easing object here, what we're going to do is move object. We're going to choose to move Sonic, and this here we can pick the type of, if we want to ease in, ease out, if we want to ease in and out, or if we want to ease out and in. So in this case, I am going to do an ease out, since it doesn't matter how he starts because he's off screen, but it matters how he comes in. And here you can pick the different types of movements he'll have, so you can see how this would look and all different stuff. The elastic one is pretty wild. You can obviously experiment with this all you want. I believe quadratic is the one I use, but I'm not sure. I'll definitely have to experiment with that. And then target X coordinate. Obviously, you could have just had your own X coordinate if you remembered it, but that's why it's easier to have these actives, because then you can just do X coordinate of that. And the Y coordinate does not really matter too much, but I'll just do the Y coordinate of the object. And for this here depends on if it is a looped movement or if it's gonna move once and then that's gonna be it. In our case, it's just gonna move once and then we'll stop him, so we'd want to do milliseconds. But if you have a looped movement, then you would want to do loops, which usually you aren't gonna have these looped movements too often. Mostly you'll have the ones where you'll need milliseconds, because then here we'll decide how long it'll take, how many milliseconds it will take to complete the movement. So after experimenting for a while, I have found that between 1000 to 2000 milliseconds are the best realistic looking times. Obviously, you'll have to experiment with it a lot, so I'll just do 1500. And then that's it. That sets up the whole movement on here. And assuming I've done everything correct, that should probably work if we run it. As you can see, it does work. The Y coordinate is a little bit messed up here, but that is just the active object. That's just the active object and Sonic having like different shapes and stuff, which can mess with that. So in that case, what I say you do is, instead of having the Y coordinate of the active, you can just keep the Y coordinate to be Sonic's current Y. So obviously, like I said, you'll have to mess around with it, but as you can see, he smoothly comes in. He does it kind of quickly, so if you want, you can move it back. If you want, you can move him out a bit more, so that way you start it and he takes a little bit to come in, but he comes in eventually. And you can obviously experiment with the time, kind of give it a realistic looking stopping time. And I think I'm gonna do 1800 milliseconds. Let's see how that looks. That looks alright to me. So now you can hide this active object if you want here. So now obviously we want to make the animations work on him. We want to get him to run and then stop. In this example, since he starts from off screen, we can straight up just at the very start change his animation to be walking, so that way when we start here, he walks in and he's still walking, obviously. So there are a few different ways you can do this right here, but the best way I say to do it would be first of all, having it where checking if Sonic's X coordinate is equal to the X of the active. So check if he's reached his stopping point. And if it is, I think you can just do that. This isn't what I was thinking, but it does mean that yeah, okay, you can do that, but I would recommend inserting limited conditions, not repeat, my bad. You insert the only one action when event loops, because basically by having this code here without this right here, it'll always set it to be change animation sequence to stopped. What you can also do is when he reaches the Sonic stopper, you can just destroy that, since we don't really need it anymore. So say he comes over here and he's stopped and he's here, he's in his position, and he only goes to the waiting animation because it's all in there by default. And now I want to have him look up a bit, just like in the original one, after a few seconds. So this is another thing with cutscenes. You're going to be using the timer a lot. It's going to most of the time be timer is equal to a certain value. You're going to use it a lot in cutscenes, just quite a lot, because most likely there is a lot of timed events going on. Probably after 3, maybe 4 seconds, I'll probably have to experiment with that. I want him to just like look up and like check out the area and see what he's doing. It fits a lot better since Mania Sonic's standing up sprite has like a curiosity type look in it. So that's why we only one action one event loop, so that way it doesn't override this event here and that he can actually go to the animation. Alright, 4 seconds was definitely a bit too long, so I'm gonna bump it down to 3 seconds, but as you can see here, he runs up, he stops, he takes a little bit, and then he looks up, just kind of checking out the area. And then after this point, that's when I want to have this boss here roll on in, and I should probably bring this to layer 3. I'm gonna have this boss like kind of fire in that elastic way, just because I feel like it fits better, and then we'll have him like smoothly ease out over just to here, and then it'll get Sonic to run over here, and then it's like that's how the level starts, and that's why at the very end we end up fighting him. Just make another active object for this one's stopping point. So let's say boss stopper. So let's try to, we don't have to perfectly match it, but let's say around here, so that way he's got room to kind of go under here if we want to have it like that. Maybe more around here. we'll have that right there, and then we'll go back and set this again. So we choose that, we do not ease in, ease out. I'm gonna do elastic, and then the target X, actually the X doesn't matter too much, especially since this one is floating. I will just do the X coordinate of this just so I know it's in the right spot, and then the Y coordinate, obviously that right there. It's just a really easier way to do it. Instead of having to like remember a specific X or Y coordinate, you can just use an object to track it. And again, I'm gonna do milliseconds, and this one I'm gonna do a little bit faster. So I think 1200 is gonna be the best one. So let's see how this looks so far. So obviously there's the object right there. We'll hide it in a little bit, and boom, he shoots down here. He's facing the wrong direction just because of how the character is set. I think I'm going to lower this a bit more, and then at the start of the frame I'm just going to change the animation direction to be this way, so that way he's facing, in a way, facing Sonic. So now this is what we have here. Sonic looks up, and then he shoots down in that elastic way, and of course Sonic's still looking at him. We can have a little thing for Sonic getting surprised. Obviously, if you have your own animations, you just use all those there. So clearly it works, and he gets to his position. So now let's say we have a little Sonic getting a little shocked and just surprised, so we can actually do that on this same one here when he shoots in. We can just change Sonic's animation to be like, there's not really like a scared or surprised animation. I think the closest we can get to a scared animation would either be the hurt animation, which is just titled falling in here, or the ledge 2 animation when facing the other direction, which I'll show you what that looks like. This would be for Sonic Mania specifically. So facing this direction, he kind of gets, that's like the closest thing we'll get to like a shocked type of animation for a bit. Obviously you probably have your own animations. I'm just going to use what Sonic Mania provides. So set it to that animation. In my case, I need to set the animation direction to be that way, and then like after just a few seconds, so not something too long, so maybe like 5 and 75, set him back to stand-up animation, and then I'll have to change his direction to be looking back that way. And let's just see how this looks so far. He looks up, shoots in, he gets scared, he goes back to looking up, and then after that point we'll copy this again, and then we'll wait up to like 7 seconds, or technically like 1 and 25 milliseconds, and then we can get the boss to start like moving out. So again, we can use this, select that, and in this case we actually don't have to really have a stopping point because he's gonna go off screen. So in this case we'll do ease in this time. I might do this so that way it starts slow and then goes quickly. I think it goes a bit more, yeah, something like that. I think I'll go with a cubic. So we'll do that. The target X coordinate can just be, see, this is why I say you don't have to get another object, because I can just set it to like 500, which is off screen. The screen itself is only 400 pixels wide on the X coordinate, and on the Y coordinate I think it's 240, but the Y coordinate doesn't matter in this case. I can just set it to be the same one as that. Obviously milliseconds time, I'm gonna have this one be a bit faster, so let's say 1000, and let's just see how that looks. So, and you can also hide the object if you want. She comes in, looks back, he goes a little bit slower than I want him to, so first I'm gonna, maybe he can start slow but then get quickly, but all through that I want him to let's say 700. let's see how this looks. I like that better. That looks a bit better. So, while it's on my mind, I'm gonna just hide that active object. What I'll do here real quick is just so that way Sonic still isn't looking up after like half a second when the boss starts to fly away. I'm just gonna set Sonic back to his ideal animation. And then this is just because Sonic Mania has these sprites to it, so this just depends on your sprites, but I mean, really, the whole thing is dependent on your sprites in game. But in this case, I think I'm gonna have at 8 seconds, I'm gonna have it Sonic, his animation go to the sort of like leaning or getting ready to get going animation. I made a whole nother thing in here, just called it leaning. I'll quickly show you it. It's just after you leave him idle for a while, he goes to this mode right here. It's like a small section I got from it, which is that's what it looks like right there. So we can kind of say he gets into that and he's preparing to like start going, and then after like half, let's do like 75. After that much, we will get the movie, not with numeric parameters. We'll get the moving, get him. We're gonna have the ease out, and then X coordinate, again, that can just be an off-screen one. The Y coordinate, that can just be Sonic's default one. We'll do milliseconds. The time, I wanna say maybe this much. Let's see how that looks. Oh, and I forgot to change the running animation. I'll do that in a second. Okay, so obviously he waits. So obviously he ends up going back to his idle animation, which isn't right, and the movement didn't look as good as I pictured it. Oh, I'm using the wrong. Oh, I was using the E. Okay, that explains quite a lot. I'll just see how that looks. Yeah, I'll see how this looks. Yeah, okay, I was using the wrong ease in or ease out. That was my fault there. Okay, obviously he starts way later than I want him to. And the reason he went back to the idle animation for me was because in here I don't actually loop it, which I probably should, and then just go back to 9. So that's just an oopsie on my side. I'm gonna lower this to 50 since clearly he sat there for a little bit before he went. Alright, let's see it now. Like I said, you have to do lots of experimenting with it, especially when you're dealing with physics. Okay, he starts a little bit too slow, so I'm gonna change this here to be maybe more quadric. Let's see how this looks. Comes in, looks up in curiosity. Eggmobile comes down. Yeah, that looks okay. That looks a lot better. I think I finally got it right. So, lots of experimenting, and and music. Obviously, this all depends on your thing. So I'll just play During the Summer. No, I didn't want to cancel it. I'll play start it with During the Summer, which is just the default music, and then when the Eggmobile comes down, I'll set the music to just the boss music, kind of like what Sonic Mania does, and then I'll stop During the Summer, and then we can say if you can either have a timer. Actually, let's do a timer here. So after let's say 10, maybe 11 second, we'll do 10. So after 10 seconds here, we'll end up stopping the boss music, and this would be when you go to your next frame or next sprite. And if you're curious about the Sonic fade, That is a whole separate extension here I have, which I think I've showed in previous tutorials. I think it's in this version of Simple Sonic Worlds, which is the special edition. I think it's in there by default. I can't remember, but that is just added by changing the effect to Sonic Fade once you've added all of that stuff in there. I'll have to make a separate tutorial where I go over that in detail, because I don't think I have yet. But this is basically the final result we have. Yeah, okay. And when the music stops, that is when we'd end up going to our next frame. Okay, so we're not done yet. I know, obviously, this cutscene does not have any dialogue in it. It's a pretty fast-paced cutscene, just meant to be styled like the original Sonic cutscenes where there was no dialogue. It was just all movement and fast-paced. So, what I'm gonna do is slow down all the times, and I'm going to show you how we can squeeze some dialogue into this. So give me a second. I'm gonna slow down these times here so that way they'll fit better for this example, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've adjusted all the times here so that way there's space for adding dialogue and that we're able to read it. So now let's add this dialogue. So most of the time what people do is they have a custom made dialogue box. Now I don't have one prepared right now, so what I'm gonna do is probably just make something like a big thing. Usually they're about this big. Obviously let them have their own layer for UI. Align and frame, horizontal center. Usually people put it at the top, but if there's if all the action's going on at the top here and there's nothing much going on at the bottom, you can just move it to the bottom, but most of the time people do put it at the very top here. So in here, let's just say if I'm doing something quick, let's not do pure black. Let's do like this, something like that. Obviously this is not perfect, but most of the time what you're gonna see is gonna look somewhat like this, just like a black box with an outline. We'll call this dialogue box. Yeah, I think I spelled that right. Okay, and now for the actual text, let's get a string, because they are the easiest to use. So obviously we don't want that string on layer 1, we want that on 4. And let's bring that back to the horizontal center, drag it up a bit. Obviously this text is going to need to be white, so that way it can contrast well. And obviously change this to however you feel. Usually I think terminal is the best because it's very pixel friendly and it usually fits well. And obviously this text box, make it as big as the dialog box itself. And you kind of just write all of the dialogue you want to use here, so you can just make different paragraphs, all the different dialogues. So if you're not using like images of characters next to the dialogue, then in there there's two options you could do. Either one, color code the dialogue to a certain character, so for Sonic make it blue, for the Eggbot make it gray, I guess. Or you can put like the name of who's talking, semicolons, and then like type in whatever they're gonna say. So for me, I'm just gonna do that, like put Sonic, semicolons, and then type in the name, or just type in whatever he'll say. So let's say let's make him say something Sonic would say. So maybe let me think. Alright, so here I just have him say something, wow, this place is greener than Green Hill. Feels like something Sonic would say to me. And I'll add dialogue for, I'll just make a new paragraph and add dialogue for the Eggbot. So I can't remember. I know they have like some name to them. I can't remember what the name is right off the bat of my head, so I'm just calling it Eggbot here. Voice crack. Something robotic. For robots, if you want, you could have it all capital, so that way it feels more like a robotic thing, or you could just have it normal. I'm probably gonna do it all capital, so something like target, and kind of make it look like something a robot would say. So like in here we can do like Sonic so like You might know what I mean, what I'm trying to go for. I hope I spelled hedgehog correct. So, and then we go back to caps, has been spotted. So, something like that, and then after he goes away, Sonic, let's have Sonic say something like, I'll send you to the scrapyard. Wouldn't be, that'd be 2 words, I think. Oh no, I hate English. Okay, so now we have all our dialogue prepared. So right now what I would do is uncheck visible at start for both of these here, and then in all the timed events that are going to have the dialogue, that is when you can have the dialogue box itself reappear. So say for example, that would be here when Sonic does the stand-up animation. So let's say we make this reappear, and where's the text? There it is. You can't drag it over to strings for some reason. You have to make it reappear. So Sonic walks in. Wow, this place is greener than Green Hill. And eventually that will come in, and that I think is here, where we can just leave the dialog box visible, but in here what we can do is you set the paragraph to this, and then what we can do for quick effect is when he starts flying away, we can make it disappear temporarily, and then we'll have it reappear when Sonic goes to his leaning animation was here. So have it reappear, set paragraph to the third one here, and then when Sonic starts running, we'll make it invisible and invisible again. So this is what we should have. Wow, this place is greener than Green Hill. Target Sonic the Hedgehog has been spotted. I'll send you to the scrapyard in no time. And then there he goes. Okay, so there's also the, instead of timed events, there's also the option of having it where, like, if you press a button, then the dialogue will change. If you're going to do that, obviously, you can just do that, and that's when certain events will trigger instead of timed events. If you're going to do only timed events, like what I have here, make sure you're thinking about giving the readers and the players time to read it, because you may be able to read it within like 4 seconds, but there are some people who may not be able to read it in that amount of time. There are some EXE games I've played where the dialogue just goes too quickly, and sometimes I can believe, like, okay, maybe the developer can read it in that amount of time, but clearly I can't. So it can get a little annoying sometimes. You can miss some details, miss out on some story. Don't have it too long as well, because then cutscenes will just be an annoying thing. Just kind of try to think about, pick the median between the times, especially since most of the EXE community is full of younger audiences now. So they really, I'd love to believe that they can't really read as quickly or as good as older audiences can. So you do have to, like, think about that when timing dialogues. But basically, what we have is the final result. Okay, so that was the tutorial, the long-awaited cutscene and dialogue tutorial. So, 42 minutes, lovely. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If Devy somehow finds this tutorial, then guess what? You've been replaced. I don't really have much announcements to make. Nothing new really coming. The EXE tutorial series will be coming to an end soon. I'm still trying to fill it up with the most amount of content I can. Obviously, you guys love to recommend ideas to me and stuff to do, and I would appreciate it if you do as well. Stuff that would, I know a lot of people recommend stuff, but it's stuff that, like, would need its own tutorial outside of the tutorial series. And some people have realized that, and they've even asked, like, can you do this after you're done with the tutorial series? Which I appreciate that people are thoughtful of that. But if you have any ideas for future parts of the tutorial series before I wrap it up, then recommend those ideas. Think of something I haven't done yet. Obviously, there are some things I know I'm going to try to cover, like possibly secret rings. I can't think of stuff right off the bat of my head, but there will be more stuff coming. But it is nice if people recommend ideas that I can actually work with. So that should be it for this tutorial. I hoped you learned something. I hope you could have added more to your EXE game or better understood, especially this easing object, because not much people could understand it, even though it's kind of easy to learn. Fun fact, I actually discovered this object right before I was making this tutorial and like played around with it a bit and was able to use it easily. So I hope you learned something. Obviously, if you have any issues, comment down below and I'll try to get back to you. And I will see you all in the next tutorial. Goodbye.